Hey there, today I'm ranking all the stands from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stardust Crusaders based on their level of usefulness IRL. Now I know every JoJo fan ever has once in their life thought of acquiring a stand of their own, and then the first chance they get to use an arrow to stab themselves with, well, they'll probably end up getting tetanus. But hey, worst case scenario, you'll die only once. So jumping onto the list, first off we got Anubis, an interesting stand that stands out due to the fact that this stand has no user. Instead, it uses anyone that comes to contact with the sword that Anubis resides in. This stand's main purpose is combat like many others, and as we know, you are not going to be stabbing anyone anytime soon. That is, if you're not living in London. Of course, and yes, you can argue that he'll excel at fencing, but you'll need to carry around the sword in order for it to work. And I'm pretty sure you won't be getting away with carrying an ancient sword in a sports competition. Also, keep in mind, you can't really take control of the stand, which makes it far from useful. I mean, can you imagine you are being controlled by an Egyptian god who's thousands of years old and his sole purpose is to use you as a vessel in combat? With all that said, our first pick of the bunch goes straight to trash, mainly because of the fact that not only would you not benefit from such a stand, on contrary, this stand will be nothing but trouble. Our second stand on the list is Bastard. Hope I didn't butcher the pronunciation of that. And from the looks of the first impression this stand makes is, well, it's a socket on a rock. Not all amazing perhaps, well, except for the owner of the stand. But let's keep our focus on the stand itself. Well, for its main power, Bastard possesses a distinct power that allows it to manipulate electrical currents and cause great harm to its victims. And we get to see this ability in action as Maria uses this ability to attract Avdol and Joseph towards each other, putting them in a sticky situation. If you are looking for some tomfoolery, the stand is a go-to, but in terms of use, from what I can tell, it can be utilized effectively for electrical engineering, and this can take you far as a lucrative business model. So all this considered, I'll give the stand a 7 out of 10 Doritos chips and send it to good use tier. Next up we got Cream, a stand which most people, including me, confused its name for Vanilla Ice, the name of its user. To be fair, Vanilla Ice would have been a better name for the stand though. Now, the name of the stand may suggest that it is a happy, joyous stand. Well, you couldn't have been more wrong. This stand will blitz you into pitiful nothingness that is the void. Don't believe me? Well then, just ask Avdol. Now, you might think this can be the best thing to use in a junkyard, but hold up. Before you start vacuuming everything like you are freaking Kirby, take a moment and think, where will all that trash go? Into the void probably, where we can no longer make use of the said trash when we could have recycled those garbages. This stand doesn't necessarily harm the user, but it does not benefit it either, so I'm gonna have to put this in the doesn't have a use list. Up next, Dark Blue Moon, a stand that is extremely useful in water. So picture this, you took a massive doo-doo in the toilet and now it is clogged. Well, you'd be one lucky bastard with open flushing if you had the stand. And picture another scenario, if you're a marine biologist like Jotaro, then you'll be in luck cause it doesn't get better than this stand in the ocean. From all this, I can confidently say and put this stand at a good use tier. Now we got an interesting one here. The stand Death 13 is one of the most deadly and useful stands in the franchise. Its main ability is to do literally anything in the dream world to anyone within the range of the stand while its victims are sleeping. This stand can be used for assassinations, and before you jump me for not making the same argument for any other stand, hear me out. Death 13 can unalive you, while you're in your sweet little sleep, which evidently leave no trace of evidence behind for you to be caught. For an even better use, you can manipulate people while they're in their sleep. By effectively deceiving anyone you got trapped in your sleep dimension, you can alter their views. I mean, just thinking about the use of such a stand seems quite deadly. This stand would be murderous wet dream, honestly. You got your own world where you are in charge of literally everything, and all for those reasons, Death 13 is our first godly useful stand. For the next stand in line, we have Ebony Devil, a stand that is specialized in assassination, and for its powers to work, you'll need your stand to be attacked for it to lock on its target, and this could only be beneficial if you're a masochist, in which case you need help, like urgently. This stand can transfer itself onto other physical objects in order to attack. While on the downsides, you have a stand that is pretty weak in terms of actual strength. And I can't really think of anything good for a stand of this caliber. I mean, what are you gonna do? Become an assassin? Come on now, you gotta have the balls to do that first. So in conclusion, it gets dunked straight into trash tier, no use whatsoever. Next on the list is the symbol of freedom, the true form of American breeding, the one and only Emperor. From the looks of this stand, it is a basic lock, right? Well, yeah, and its only difference between a real gun is that this is a stand and only stand users can see Emperor. If you think about blasting holes through with this, then you need to consider that your stand is the only thing incognito while you're just standing there in the crime scene, minding your own business, probably not, and you'll be under suspicion right away. I mean, who the fuck would make up a story on the go about a murder scene where you just shot someone just with your hand? I'm just thinking you'll be sent straight to Area 51 and be tested on. So if you don't want this kind of hassle, the only way that you can make use of a stand like this is probably for self-protection, you know, low key, just if someone's trying to attack you, I don't know, hit a vital spot and call it a day, I guess, which in itself is pretty important but limited to its use, so I'ma put this at barely any use. After Emperor, we got Empress, which to be frank is another useless stand. All it does is latch onto someone's arm and piss them off, so off the trash with this one. Continuing on, we got the Fool next, a stand from the Stardust Crusaders group itself. Now this stand is pretty simple. I mean, if a dog can use it, so can anyone else maybe. The stand is mainly used for combat, but IRL, one way you can make use out of it is to use it as a transportation device for yourself. Yeah, genius, right? Imagine the shock on every non-stand user's faces when they see you pull up in your invisible car. Because of this, stand gets a solid place in the good use tier. Next stand on trial for the tier list is Jeb. As short as its name is, this stand is pretty small in size. Its user in the anime is casually blind, and if you can make the stand work, why can't you? Similar to Dark Blue Moon, you can generally use the stand for being a top-notch plumber. If you got anything stuck in narrow spaces, this stand definitely has got your back, even if it returns the item soaked. So the final review for Jeb would be to put him in a good use tier list. Next up, one of my personal favorites, we got Hermit Purple. Now in the anime, this stand is regarded as one of the weakest stands to exist. However, don't let this fool you from the real prize you would have if you had this stand IRL. First off, in the anime, the stand is used by Joseph Joestar, and its particular use is to find locations by smashing valuable cameras. You might think, what good would that be if I had to waste hundreds of dollars for my stand to work? Well, in my humble theory, you wouldn't need to smash anything since in our modern time, we have something called mobile phones. You can directly use Hermit Purple on your phones, as it shows in the anime how Joseph used the stand on a TV to continuously watch Kakyoin and Polnareff fight off another stand user. With that said, you would have access to all the information on the world, whether that's on the internet or physically on the world, thanks to Hermit Purple. Without anything more to add, Hermit Purple is an easy god tier useful stand. Up next, we got Hangman, another stand that specializes in assassination. This really goes to show how Part 3 stand's main focus was just combat and nothing much more. But even so, this stand teleports between reflection, whether on a mirror or a single drop of rain. Even so, you can't really do much because the only thing that teleports is the stand and not the user. And probably if you're going to use a stand like this, you're gonna be hiding somewhere scratching your balls while the stand does its job. A pretty cool stand with no basic function IRL, so I have to put it at it doesn't really have a use tier. Another one of the Crusaders on the list, Kakyoin's Hierophant Green, is a pretty solid, versatile stand in the anime. Well, from a realistic point of view, this stand can create the undeflectable emerald splash and duplicate emeralds, thus single-handedly causing inflation in the market. Other than this stand has a good range and can use its tail as a long rope, which you can make use of that, hopefully in a good way. The stand IRL wouldn't really have much to offer IRL, but cashing out on the emerald market puts Hierophant Queen at a good use tier. Next, we got Horus, a stand that is used by another animal. You wouldn't really need to dwell too much into the powers of this one. Basically, it can freeze things so you can work as a fridge and become the best at your job. Yeah, just because of this simple ability, it definitely deserves good use tier. Up next, we got Judgment, a stand that seemingly grants wishes. With this stand, you can become a fine con artist and make a living out of it. Honestly, and the best part is the wishes would probably end up killing your clients, so you won't have to worry about satisfaction. Overall, a solid good use tier. Moving along, we have another deadly and sinister stand known as Justice. The stand can control and create illusions on its victims simply by wounding them and entering their wounds. This part definitely sounds disgusting, but the upside is so good it can be overlooked, I guess. This level of manipulation can be benefited from quite well, and it's a no-brainer to put Justice in godly useful list. Another interesting stand on the list is Hnum. I don't know how to pronounce some of these stands, hopefully I got that right. This stance allows you to mold your face to look like anyone. Not only can you get rid of your insecurities by hiding your ugly face, but you can become a doppelganger and get some serious cash out of it. Easily a godly useful stand. Up next is a stand very well hated in the community known as Lovers. Now don't get me wrong, the user Steely Dan was the lowest scum on earth. However, don't let this blind you from the fact that Lovers has an enormous range and can cause extreme pain to its victims by infiltrating their brain and messing with it. Though there's no benefit from such a small and weak stand, so at best the Lovers is in barely any use tier list. Following next, we have Osiris, a true gambler stand. It really has no help whatsoever if you are gambling, and it will only work if you defeat your opponent and trap their souls. I mean, why would you collect your ops souls though? This stand has no use in real life whatsoever. Next on the list is High Priestess, another formidable stand in combat with no viable use IRL. It has pretty sharp claws, so if you're gonna open up a butcher shop anytime soon, it might be your pick. This stand barely has any use here. Following next, Sephin, an underrated stand that would be too OP IRL. You might think, hey, the user of this stand might be a predator, but on contrary, if your main target audience would be old people, you can make top dollar with this stand by giving elderly another chance at their youth. To this day, I still can't forgive Araki creating such a stand and not using it on Joseph honestly. but still a dope stand nonetheless, and deserves godly useful tier. Up next, the stand of the famous French turtle, we have Silver Chariot, a stand that is a top-notch swordsman and has extreme speed feats. Now, unlike Anubis, with Silver Chariot you can actually go into fencing and probably dominate every match, which would come in handy, or you can pursue and making career out of baking baguettes, which would probably come from the French side of the stand. Overall, it's got a pretty good use IRL. For the main course of the video, we got Star Platinum. Before anyone thinks that Star Platinum is only good for battles, we need to consider its precision, strength, and speed, and everything else which would make any user a superhuman. You can basically dominate every sports, paint pictures more precise than a computer, and in everything else you do, you'll probably end up beating everyone. And finally, cherry on top, you would have Time Stop, which combined with Star Platinum's speed, 5 seconds would be ample amount of time to do any task. PS, even in bed, you can make use of Starfinger for better results. So just imagine the delicious meals you would get from someone using Star Platinum in Mickey D's. So without any hesitation, Star Platinum is a godly useful stand. Following next is Drake. Now the name doesn't really depict the stand quite well, due to the fact that it is a literal ship. Yes, you heard me correct. And even a more weird fact, the stand user is a monkey. You can use the stand, you probably guessed it, as a ship to set sail in the seas or ocean or wherever you like, because you get a free ship and it has a good use. I mean, free ship, who wouldn't want that? Another stand with a creative name we have on the list is the Sun. As the name suggests, this stand is a literal sun. With this stand, you would have a portable heater wherever you go, and not to mention an endless supply of energy if you collect off of its rays. This stand would be a lifesaver in the winter, so it's 100% deserving of good use here. Next up is a stand I had completely forgot that existed. Tenora's Sack is a stand that creates illusions, so whether you want to traumatize people with freaked up illusions or do something nice will be up to your good consciousness. So in general, this would be a good stand to use IRL. Another full course meal stand in this video, a stand that would be extremely useful to use in the real world, would be no other than the world. Nothing much to expand on this stand, as it's quite literally the same vein as Star Platinum. So by default, it deserves nothing less than godly useful tier. Following up, we have Tots, otherwise known as Oingo stand. This stand doesn't really have a use, as it basically tells fortune that has been set sail and which cannot be escaped. So even if you know what will happen in the future, you can't really change your fate, even if there's a minor differences in timing or whatnot, as suggested by each one of JoJo's deaths having been the same way as the comic book had prophesied it to be. With that in mind, the stand can be put and barely has any use. Next up is Tower of Grey, and I'm not gonna even explain this stand. It's a stupid freaking stand. It's a annoying fly looking thing, and why would you want to use that? I mean, yeah, you can probably annoy some people, but it barely has any use. Next we have on the list is Autumn, another gambling stand, and unlike Osiris, it is actually a viable stand to use IRL due to its main ability of reading souls, which can help you to cash out of any casino. Plus, you could collect souls like Osiris. I mean, again, why? This stand definitely has a good use. Next up is Wheel of Fortune, a stand that can make your car a monster-like creature, and which is something you wouldn't rely on IRL, though this stand doesn't have a use. Lastly on the list is Yellow Temperance, a stand similar to Gnome in terms of copying someone's form, in which this stand takes the cake and progresses it further, as not only your face will look like someone but your whole body. So on that note, this stand is a godly useful stand. So this just completes the whole part 3 stands based on their usefulness IRL.